Chú Vương cho
Oh Rajacharya Ashtotter Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhai Charnar Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Kavida Navika Om Pad Parahans Parivrajacharya Ashtotter Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Grabhraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Morning Class Ki Yoga Dharma Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitaya Gaura Prema Hari Hari Bol Hari Hari Bol Hari Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Tato Jayamudiraye Darshitapraya Shwapatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Daishiki. So today we will recite from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 29th chapter, text number 67. The chapter is entitled as Talks between Narada and King Prachin Barhi. So please kindly recite after the original recitation. Adrishtamashrutam chatra Adrishtamashrutam chatra Kvachin manasi drishyate Kvachin manasi drishyate Yatha tatha numantavyam Yatha tatha numantavyam Deshakala priyashrayam Deshakala priyashrayam Adrishtamashrutam chakra Kvachin manasi drishyate Yatha tatha numantavyam Deshakala priyashrayam Mataji. So, Adrishtam, never experienced, Ashrutam, never heard, Shar, and Atra, in this life, Kvachit, at some time, Manasi, in the mind, Drishyate, is visible, Yatha, as Tatha, accordingly, Anumantavyam, to be understood, Desha, place, call, time, Kriya, activity, Ashrayam, depending on. Translation and purpose by this Prabhupada. Sometimes in a dream we see something never experienced or heard of in this life. But all these incidents have been experienced at different times, in different places, and in different conditions. Perfect. In the previous verse it was explained that in dreams we see that which was experienced during the day. In the previous verse it was explained that in dreams we see that which was experienced during the day. But why is it that we sometimes in our dreams see what we have never heard of or seen at any time during this life? Here it is stated that even though such events may not be experienced in this life, they were experienced in previous lives. According to time and circumstance, they combine so that in dreams we see something wonderful that we have never ever experienced. For instance, we may see an ocean on the peak of a mountain. Or we may see that the ocean has dried up. These are simply combinations of different experiences in time and space. Sometimes we may see a golden mountain, and this is due to our having experienced gold and mountains separately. In the dream and illusion, we combine these separate factors. In this way, we are able to see golden mountains or stars during the day. The conclusion is that these are all mental concoctions, although they have actually been experienced in different circumstances. They have simply combined together in a dream. This fact is further explained in the following verse. Om Aryanadevandhasya Yanam Jakshalakaya Chakshurunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamam Vadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganaragunathanvitam tam sajeevam sadvaitam savadhutam parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaganalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopinakanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa-sindhubhya eva ca pattanam-karanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. In the very beginning of today's discourse, I would like to initially offer my most respectfully prostrated obeisances and to the lotus feet of their divine lordships, Shri Shri Rukmini and Dwarka, and also unto their divine lordships, Shri Shri Radha and Shyama Sundar Dev, along with their eternal associates and companions like Shri Lalita Devi, Shri Vishakha Devi, Shri Rupati Manjari, etc. And along with them, I would also like to pay my most respectfully prostrated homages unto the lotus feet of their divine lordships, Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Shri Shri Nityananda Prabhu, along with their eternal companions such as Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatana Goswami, and all the 6 Goswamis of Shri Dham Vrindavan. Finally, I would also like to pay my obeisances and due respects unto the lotus feet of His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanananda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has very nicely propagated the doctrine of Krishna consciousness throughout this world in his present modern era in a most unique and fantastic, unprecedented way. Conclusively, I would also like to pay my obeisances and due respects unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord present herein, especially His Grace Srila Subhasa Prabhu, who is very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and all the other senior devotees. And thereafter, I would now like to comment the context of our today's discussion, especially the context of Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 29th chapter, 67th verse, which is coming as a part of the conversation taking place between Narada Muni and King Prajin Parthi. So, in the present verse under discussion, it has been described by Narada Mahamuni unto King Prajin Parthi how the mind acts upon the living entity. This process of how the mind acts upon the entity and produces multifarious mundane desires, and thereby by producing these multifarious mundane desires, how the mind is successful and is able to bind the living entity into its bondage has been vividly illustrated in this context. And Lord Kapil Dev describes in his, Lord Narada Muni, I was just talking on the Kapila's instructions in the previous classes, So Lord Narad Mahamuni, he describes here in this 67 and the 68, these two verses, the exact way of how the mind produces different types of graphic images and different types of pictures that the living entity especially experiences during the time of dream or during the time of deep sleep, when the living entity experiences or visualizes very different types of scenarios in the dream. How those scenarios, how those graphic images, how those pictures are produced from the mind, this has been described. That the faculty of mind mixes all the different types of graphic images, and then it produces all those graphic images and events which have actually been experienced either in this particular lifetime or in the previous lifetimes, in many different types of places, surroundings, environments, times, places and circumstances and situations. In all these many different types of desh, kal, kriya and paristhiti. That is the last phrase of today's discussion. Desh means all types of mundane space. Kal means all types of mundane time. Kriya means all types of different mundane actions and events. And paristhiti, which has although that word has not been very clearly mentioned, but that word has been pointed out in the translation and also in the question of Prabhupada. The word paristhiti means different conditions and circumstances. So, all the different forms of pictures and images which have been experienced by the living entity in those events occurring in different places, different times, different circumstances, are mixed up together, they are joined together, and then they produce a new type of concocted image, speculated image, and that concocted or speculated image is the vision that the living entity sees, visualizes, he envisions, he beholds while he is in the dream state known as Swapnavastha. So although the ingredient cause for all the dreams that the living entity sees in his deep sleep, the ingredient cause for all those dreams are the realities. Those dreams are based on realities. They are based on all the past events, occurrences and incidents. But when they are mixed up in a newer way, and when they produce a particular type of event which has never been heard of, which has never been seen or heard of or experienced by the living entity in this particular lifetime, or sometimes even in previous lifetimes he has never heard of, seen of, and has experience of these experiences that he has for the first time in his dream state. So although the ingredient cause for all these dreams, ingredient cause means the upadana. The ingredient cause for all these dreams and all the images and all the different types of visions that he has in his dreamy state are based on reality, but they themselves are not reality because they are concocted by mixing up different types of realistic experiences. That is the point that Narad Mahamuni is trying to make in this particular verse. So now we will endeavor to go into the depth of this matter. According to the Patanjali Yoga Darshan and according to the Sankhya Darshan, these two types of philosophical systems. Actually there are 6 types of philosophical systems, theistic philosophical systems. The first is known as Vaisheshika, and that is Vaisheshika, a school has been founded by Karnamuni. Second is known as Nyaya Darshan, or the Nyaya philosophical system, and that has been founded by Gautam Muni. Then the third is Patanjali Yoga Darshan, and that has been founded by Patanjali Muni. The fourth is Sankhya Darshan, or the analytical study of the 24 elements of this material nature, and that has been found by Kapil Muni, the incarnation of Agni, or the incarnation of Narayan, the different Kapil. The Sankhya Darshan has been found by him. Then the Purva Mimamsa Darshan has been found by Jaimini, the disciple of Vyasadeva, and the Uttar Mimamsa Vedanta Darshan, or the Vedanta philosophical system, the Brahma Sutra, that has been found by Lord Krishna Dvaipaya Vyasadeva. So these are the 6 philosophical systems. And among these all these 6 philosophical systems, they deal with the analysis of the different tattvas, different principles found in this material world, especially different elements, and especially the 24 elements of this material world. But among these 6 philosophical systems, although all of these philosophical systems, they more or less deal with the 24 elements, but especially the Sankhya philosophical system and the Yoga philosophical system, the Yoga Darshan and the Sankhya Darshan, they deal more specifically of the description of these 24 elements found within this mundane creation, and especially the Yoga Darshan deals with the 3 types of stages that the living entity experiences while this condition in this material world. So the first stage of any conditioned living entity is known as Jagrita Avastha. And what is this Jagrita Avastha? Jagrita Avastha is literally defined as the awakened state. The awakened state. So the awakened state has been analyzed, because right now we are talking about different stages, like the dreaming stage, etc. And mind is the most active factor, is the most active principle, is the most dominant object in the picture when we are talking about the dreamy state. But in order to understand the dreamy state, we have to understand all the 4 stages, or all the 4 conditions that the conditioned living entity passes through. So the physical state, which is also known as the awakened state, or the Jagrita Avastha, how has it been defined by the Yoga and by the Sankhya Darshan? So Jagrita Avastha is defined as when all the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, that means the Pancha Jnanendriyas, when all the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and when all the 5 action performing active senses, that means the Pancha Karmendriyas, along with mind, that is Mana, along with intelligence, or the faculty of intellect, and that is Buddhi, along with Ahankar, or the false ego, along with Chitta, or the storehouse of subtle impressions of all the activities performed in different lifetimes, along with the soul. When all these different factors are active, they are active and they are not dormant, then it is said that the person is situated, that the living entity or the soul is situated within the state of awakening, or within the physical state, or the awakened state known as Jagrita Avastha. That means all the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses are, in a chronological order, the Shrodrendriya, or the 2 ears, then Ghanendriya, or the 2 nostrils, the tongue, the Jivendriya, Rasanendriya, the skin, the Tvagendriya, and finally the 2 eyes, Rupendriya. So these are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, because through ears the knowledge of sound is acquired, Shabda Jnana. Through skin, or the knowledge of touch is acquired, Sparsha Jnana. Through nostrils, the knowledge of odor, smell, or fragrance is acquired, and that is known as Gandha Jnana. Through eyes, the knowledge of form is acquired, Rupa Jnana. And through tongue, the knowledge of taste is acquired, and that is Rasa Jnana. So all these 5 types of mundane knowledges are acquired through these 5 mundane knowledge acquiring senses, And that is why these senses, because they are instrumentals, they act as instrumentals in acquiring these different types of five knowledges. That is why they are known as the knowledge acquiring senses or Panchagyanendriyas. Then the Panchagyanendriya or the five action performing senses. So through the five action performing senses, the knowledge is not acquired, but rather some physical activity is enacted or is executed. Just like one example, the five knowledge acquiring senses are, first of all, the Vak Indriya. Vak Indriya means the faculty of speech. The faculty of speech which is situated within the voice box. So this faculty of speech, Vak Indriya performs the function of talking, singing, etc. Singing, talking, whistling, etc. Then comes Upasthendriya, or the sense of genitals, or the reproductive sense. And the Upasthendriya has a special task of passing the urine and also of reproducing. Then comes Gudendriya, and the Gudendriya has a special function of excreting the excretion. Excreting the excretion. Then comes the two hands, and they are known as Hastendriya, and the function assigned for the two hands is to either take something into the grip or to establish something, to put something or to take something. That is the special function assigned for Hastendriya. Sthapan and Grahan. Sthapan Karya and Grahan Karya. To establish something and to take something. And then comes the Padendriya or the 2 feet. And the Padendriya or the feet have special 2 functions, Gaman and Agaman. Gaman and Agaman means to go somewhere and to again come back. And standing, sitting, etc. All these are different functions of the Padendriya or the sense of feet. So these are the 5 action performing senses. Then the mind. What is the function of mind? The function of mind is to desire, that is sankalpa. The function of mind, the specific assigned function, the prescribed function of mind is to think. Not more of thinking, but actually is to desire or to produce different types of desires, and that is known as sankalpa, and to produce many different types of options, that is known as vikalpa, sankalpa and vikalpa. And so Srimad Bhagavatam Shloka very nicely describes that how the mind produces different types of sankalpas and different types of vikalpas. So sankalpa means a particular desire, especially the desire to enjoy the different types of significant items found within this material world that is produced from mind in many different ways through many different styles. So that is one sankalpa, and there are many different choices or options, and the mind itself produces many different types of choices and options, and then it selects a particular type of choice and option that is known as vikalpa. So, and the mind also has a third faculty. The first function is to desire. The second function, that is sankalpa. The second function is to select from many options, that is vikalpa. And the third function the mind performs is the experience. The mind experiences sukha and dukkha, the distress and the happiness. And then the fourth function that the mind has is that it creates, it produces aversion for some items, and it produces attachment for some items, raga and dvesh. So these are the specific 4 functions of the mind: to create raga and dvesh, to create aversion or detachment and attachment or liking. Then to experience sukha and dukkha, that is distress and happiness. Then to select from many different choices or many different options, that is vikalpa, and then to desire, that is finally sankalpa. These are the 4 functions of the mind as described by the Yoga and the Sankhya Darshan. Then buddhi, or the faculty of intellect. So buddhi, or the faculty of intellect, has a specific function, and that is to ascertain the real nature or to acquire the actual knowledge of any particular mundane item found within this material world, which is within the jurisdiction of mundane experience. The mind and intellect, they are not able to ponder over the inconceivable items which are of inconceivable nature, characterized by which are transcendental to the products of the three modes of material nature. So those items and those objects which have not been produced by the three modes of material nature are all considered inconceivable according to the Mahabharata verse, and the mind, intelligence, and all the other faculties of subtle body and gross body, they are not able to approach the inconceivable existence unless and until that the mind, senses, etc. have become spiritualized by the grace of the Lord upon the performance of bhakti yoga. That's a different case. Otherwise, as the Vedas are stating, as the Upanishads are stating, that along with the mind, intellect, and the faculty of speech, the faculty of the mind, and the faculty of intellect, all these three faculties, they are trying to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the ascending process, through the Aroha, which is not the actual way, which is not the proper way of approaching absolute truth. So as a result, what happens is that the mind, intellect, and speech are not able to approach the personality of Godhead, and without actually approaching the personality of Godhead, after becoming tired, they again return back without approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in ordinary cases, the buddhi or the faculty of intellect is what gives the actual knowledge or is what ascertains about the real nature of any particular mundane object under the in the jurisdiction of our experience. So all the different kinds of mundane objects which are within the jurisdiction of our experience, the real nature and the real knowledge regarding those objects is ascertained, is judged, is decided by the faculty of intellect. What the faculty of intellect does is that it separates the real actual knowledge of some object from the incorrect knowledge. From the incorrect knowledge, it separates the correct knowledge of some particular mundane item. That is called rationalizing. That is called the act of rationalizing. So intelligence rationalizes, it gives real knowledge of an object and it separates the unreal or the false knowledge or the incorrect knowledge of a particular item from the real knowledge. That is what the faculty of intelligence does. That is known as buddhi. And then comes ahankara. Ahankara means the faculty of mundane material and ego. That is known as mithya ahankara or the false ego also. So this false ego is also part of subtle body. Actually, subtle body has 4 divisions and the gross body has 10 divisions. So the 5 knowledge acquiring senses and the 5 actually knowing senses, these are the 10 divisions of the gross body. And the subtle body has 4 divisions. Man, buddhi, ahankar and chitta. Mind, intelligence, ego and the subtle impressions. Chitta means the subtle impressions. So we have already discussed about the functions of mind and intelligence, mana and buddhi. Now let me discuss about the function of ahankar or the function of false ego. So ahankar, the false ego, it rather creates an illusory conception. It rather creates an illusory conception in regards to the real identity of individuality. The real identity, the real constitutional position, the swarupa, the real constitutional position and identity of the entity is that he is the eternal survivor of the Lord. Jivena Swarupa, Krishna Tatatha Shakti Bheda Prakar. and that is separated that mental portion of the Lord, Mamai Jiva Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manashasthani Indriyani Prakritisthani Karshati, and that he is the marginal potency of the Lord, and he also is the marginal potency of the Lord. That is why it is both separated and non-separated from the Lord. That is why Jive Tapastha Shakti Bheda Bhed Prakash. Jive Swarupai Krishna Nitya Loss. So, the eternal constitutional position and the factual, real, original identity of the living entity is that he is the unconditional survivor of the Lord in all conditions, in all situations, and in all stages, and in all various different types of time, place, and circumstance. But because coming under the influence of this false ego or ahankar, the living entity starts misconstruing his real identity. What the mithya ahankar does, what the false ego does, the false ego actually covers up the real ego of the living entity. Now, according to our acharyas, especially Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, according to these two acharyas, the living entity also has his own faculty of mind, intelligence, and ego, Manobuddhi and Ahankar. But that Manobuddhi and Ahankar, that mind, that intelligence, and that ego, which are living entities alone, which are not part of the subtle body. Subtle body is considered subtle body because it is subtler than the gross body. The mundane, unaided eyes cannot see the subtle body or the different aspects of subtle body like mind, intelligence, ego, etc. directly. But because subtle body cannot be seen, it cannot be heard through eyes, it cannot be seen, it cannot be heard through the ears, it cannot be seen through the eyes, it cannot be smelled through the nostrils, it cannot be touched through the skin, and it cannot be tasted through the tongue, and it cannot be grasped beneath the head, and it cannot be walked through the feet. That is why, because the five knowledge acquired and the five action performing senses are unable to approach the aspects of the subtle body, that is why the subtle body is considered subtler than the gross body. Because the gross body is not able to approach subtle body. You cannot say that my ears are able to hear subtle body and my eyes are able to envision or behold the subtle body. That is not possible. Because the subtle body is inapproachable through the gross body, that is why it is considered subtle body. So if subtle body is inapproachable, then how inapproachable the living entity must be, and then how inapproachable, how much inapproachable the supreme personality of God Shri Krishna must be. We cannot even experience the subtle body through our gross senses. Very common example, very physical example, very common sensical example. So, the subtle body is considered subtler than the gross body, but even though it may be subtler than the gross body, it may be imperceptible to the gross body, still it is of the same nature as the gross body. It is of the same identity as the gross body. How? Because the gross body is also made up of the three modes of material nature, especially known as Sattva, Raja, and Tama. And the subtle body is also made up of the same three ingredients, namely especially known as. That is why in identity both the subtle and the gross bodies are of the same nature. The only difference is that the subtle body and the fourfold aspects of subtle body, Manobuddhi, Chitta, and Ahankar, they are imperceptible to the senses found in the gross body. That's the only difference. But otherwise they are of the same nature, made up of inert three modes of material nature. So, the difference between the subtle body and the mind, intelligence, ego found within the subtle body, and the difference between the mind, intelligence, ego found within the living entity itself, is that the mind, intelligence, ego found within the living entity and his constitutional identity are innate to his nature, are integrated part of living entity's nature, and they are completely spiritual and conscious and eternal. But the mind, intelligence, false ego, which are found within the subtle body, made up of the three modes of material nature, are rather acting as a covering on top of the living entity. They are not part of the living entity's internal nature and identity. And these mind-intelligence and ego, which are found within the subtle body, are first of all inert, unconscious. They are not conscious by nature. They are temporal. They are not perpetual, like the living entity and his mind-body intelligence. And they are not only temporal, not only inert in nature, but they are also not part of the living entity's internal identity, and they belong to the external potency of the Lord. Whereas in mind, intelligence and ego, which are found within the swarupa of the jiva, within the internal nature of the living entity, are not part of the external potency of the Lord, but rather part of the marginal potency of the Lord. So, the Swarupa Bhuta, the Swarupa Bhuta Ahankar, the Swarupa Bhuta Buddhi of the living entity. That means the mind, intelligence and ego, which is the innate part of the living entity's existence. Those mind, intelligence and egos, they are covered by the mind, intelligence and ego of the subtle body. When the living entity when the living entity becomes conditioned, at that very time, Maya, the first thing she does is that she covers up the real identity, the Vasudika Swarupa, the real Swarupa, the real identity of the living entity, by first of all allowing this so-called false ego or Mithya Ahankar. So first of all, Maya grants or Maya bestows this Mithya Ahankar or the false ego on the living entity. And then she gradually grants the faculty of mundane intellect and then the faculty of mundane mind. And that is how the living entity becomes bound up in a very gradual, sequential process. So, the mundane false ego, Mithya Ahankar, which is part of subtle body, this Mithya Ahankar or the mundane false ego produces completely wrong misconception in regards to the identity of the living entity, in regards to the identification of the living entity. And the false ego produces the conception that the living entity starts thinking, due to that conception, due to the false conception that the false ego produces, the living entity starts thinking himself to be the enjoyer of the whole material world. And when the living entity enters into a particular type of gross body, at that time, living entity, he again becomes covered up by a second type of false ego. There are two types of false egos. First false ego and the second false ego. So the first false ego is the most fundamental form of false ego found within the material existence. Even when living entity is not found within any particular type of gross body, but even though he is not in any particular type of gross body, even though he is still conditioned, and so he is still influenced by the misidentification, by the wrong conception that I am the enjoyer of this material life. That is why you will see that in the Bhagavad Gita it is described that when the living entities, when they merge into the Karana Rakshai Mahavishnu, at the time of annihilation, all their mundane desires and their mundane mind, intelligence, etc., taking their subtle bodies, when all relinquishing their gross bodies and taking the subtle bodies with them, when all these entities were still conditioned and who have not become eligible to be liberated, when they enter into the transcendental body of Karana Rakshai Mahavishnu, at the time of final dissolution and annihilation, so at that time the Mithya Ahankar or the false ego is still there with the living entities. Even when the living entities have entered into the Karana Rakshai Mahavishnu's transcendental form, even at that time, with the living entities, the living entities are even at that time endowed with their right companion, which is the false ego or Mithya Ahankar. So false ego of the most basic type continues to stay with the living entity no matter where he goes, as long as the living entity is conditioned. And the most basic fundamental form of false ego is that it makes the living entity misidentify himself, it makes the living entity forget his real swarupa, and then it makes the living entity think that I am an enjoyer of this material world, and then it makes the living entity think that I have to lord myself over the material nature. I am the sole enjoyer of this mundane world. This is the most basic fundamental form of the Mithya Ahankar, and then comes the secondary form of Mithya Ahankar. And the second form of Mithya Ahankar is very related. It is not as eternal. Actually, even the most basic fundamental form of false ego is not eternal. Because after liberation, the subtle body becomes destroyed. But the second form of the false ego is comparatively more temporal than the fundamental form of the false ego. So the secondary form of the false ego is acquired by the living entity when he enters into a particular type of gross body. And as soon as he relinquishes, he comes out, he leaves that particular type of gross body after death. That secondary type of false ego, which he had acquired in that body, also becomes destroyed. Just like the conditioned living entity enters into body of a human being. So then he starts thinking that I am a human being. But as soon as he comes out from the body of this human being, then he again forgets that I was a human being, or that he even forgets that I was a human being. He completely forgets that I was in a human body. So this ahankara is destroyed as soon as the living entity comes out from a particular type of body. But then, even though he comes out of a particular type of body, the most basic fundamental form of false ego, that is, I am the enjoyer of the material world, still continues to exist. That is why, and that most basic fundamental form of false ego is never destroyed until the whole subtle body is finally destroyed at the time of the liberation of the living entity. Mukti. That is why ahankar, the faculty of ahankar, is what causes the individual to misidentify himself, the misconception. And that is the very nice explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhayam viniveshanahasya nishanapetasya vipayos pradvidhi tam abhajetam buddhaabhajetam gurudevatatma. So in that shloka of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that gurudevatatma tam abhajetam bhayam viniveshanahasya nishanapetasya vipayos. That the first thing that the Maya does when the living becomes conditioned is that the Maya makes the living entity forget his real swarupa. That is the first thing she does. And the second thing she does is that she produces a complete wrong misconception and misidentification within the living entity by making living entity covered up via the faculty of false ego or mithya ahankara. So we were talking that living entity also has its own mind intelligence and ego. And the mind intelligence and ego that the living entity has are dominant as long as the living entity is conditioned. But as soon as the living entity starts performing devotional service of the Lord, his own mind intelligence and ego, they start working. And when the living entity becomes completely liberated from this mundane world, then his connection with the subtle body becomes completely severed up and completely disconnected. And even after becoming disconnected with the mundane subtle body and the mundane gross body, living entity continues to think, continues to experience, continues to think, will, feel and desire. And because he has his own mind, intelligence and ego, that is why he continues to think, will, feel, desire and experience, etc. So, the existence of the Swarupa Bhuta Buddhi and Ahankar cannot be denied. The existence of the innate mind, intelligence and ego of the living entity can never be denied. So, right now we are talking about the fourth part of the subtle body. So we have already talked about the three parts, Mana, Buddhi and Ahankar, mind, intelligence and ego. Now we will talk about the fourth part or the fourth aspect of the subtle body. Normally, whenever a subtle body has been described in the Shastras, only the three aspects have been described. Man, Buddhi and Ahankar, mind, intelligence, and ego. And the fourth aspect, Chitta, is not described in most of the places of the Shastra, especially Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. But the Samkhya mentions about Chitta. The reason why the Shastras do not mention Chitta is because they are following, the Shastras sometimes follow a very special technique of describing some particular objects. Just like in the case of the Vedas. In the case of the Vedas, normally the three Vedas are mentioned. Most of the time you will see in Srimad Bhagavatam and in Srimad Bhagavad Gita also, that verse of the 9th canto, 9th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna only talks about three Vedas. And then most of the places in Shastras, only Samveda, Yajurveda and Rigveda have been mentioned. And the Atharva Veda and the listing and the enumeration of Atharva Veda has been left out. But that does not mean that the Atharva Veda does not exist or that the Atharva Veda is not a bona fide type of Veda, because just because it has not been mentioned in this particular context. So Vedas and the Vedic scriptures generally they follow the trend of mentioning only three of the four items. They only mention three out of the four Vedas, most of the time. Sometimes they will mention all the four Vedas by the name, but normally when they are mentioning by the name, they will only mention three of the four Vedas. That's the general mood of the Vedic scriptures. And the general mood of Lord Vyasadeva and other rishis when they are writing the scriptures. So in the same way, generally speaking, Man, Buddhi and Ahankar, only they are described, most of the time. But that doesn't mean that the fourth aspect of the Antahkaram, the fourth aspect of the Sukshma Sharira, the fourth aspect of the subtle body or the inner sense is not existing. The fourth aspect is also existing, and that is known as Chitta. And what is Chitta? The Chitta is the storehouse of the subtle impressions which are acquired by the performance of various different types of material activities, bhautik karma. By the performance of various different types of material activities of bhautik karma, the subtle impressions of those material actions and activities, whether they be mental actions, whether they be verbal actions, or whether they be physical actions, all the three types of material actions, their subtle impressions, once those actions are performed, once those activities are completed, the subtle impressions of those subtle activities and actions, they are stored up in a particular part of the subtle body for the future use, for the future usage. Just like a photographic image, they are stored up. These impressions of all the activities that we have performed so far in our mundane existence, in many different lifetimes, are stored up in a particular part of the subtle body, and that part of the subtle body where the impressions are stored up is known as Chitta. And then comes Atma, or the living entity, who is completely aloof, transcendental, beyond, and is completely different from all the aspects of subtle body and all the aspects of the gross body. And that is known as Atma, or the living entity, the spirit soul. So, now we were describing the Swapna, or the state of dream, the state of dream, or the state of sleep, because this shloka emphasizes the state of dream and how the mind acts at the time when the living entity is in its dreamy state. But first we have to understand, so in just 5 minutes more I will summarize the whole topic. So first we have to understand what is Jagrita Avastha. Jagrita Avastha, or the state of awakening, is when all the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, all the 5 action performing senses, mind, intelligence, ego, and the subtle impressions, and the space soul Jivatma. That means 10, 4, 14, and 15. When all these 15 entities, when all these 15 objects, they are completely active. They are completely active. They are not dormant in any sense. Then a person is said to be in the state of complete awakening, or the physical state known as the Jagrita Avastha. That is how the yoga darshan and the Sankhya darshan have defined the physical awakened state of the living entity in this mundane world. Then comes Swapnavastha, or the state of dream. That's what we are talking about in this shloka of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the state of dream, which is known as Swapnavastha, because Swapna means dream and Avastha means the state or the phase. So the state of dream or the condition of dream, Swapnavastha, is characterized by saying that in Swapnavastha, in the dreamy state, the five knowledge acquiring senses and the five action performing senses are, although they are existing, but their functions are turned off. Their functions are turned off, they do not remain active anymore and they become inactive and dormant. When all the 10 senses, Jnanendriya and Karmendriya, when they become completely turned off, although they are existing, but they do not function. They become dormant, they become completely inactive, and at the same time, mind still continues to remain active, buddhi, intelligence still continues to remain active, ahankara, mithya, or the false ego still continues to remain active, chitta, the seven impressions still continue to remain active, and of course, the living entity jivatma still continues to remain active, then that is known as the state of dream, Swapnavastha. Now, this is not enough, because in order to fully become acquainted with the dreamy state of the dreamy condition or the condition of dream, we have to become also acquainted with the other two states which we have still not described. And so the other two states are, after Swapnavastha comes Sushupti. These are actually the three states mentioned in the Yoga Shastra, Jagrata, Swapna and Sushupti. So the Sushupti Avastha is characterized, is defined as condensed condition of sleep, condition of condensed sleep. The dreamy state is different from the condition of condensed sleep. In which way? Because in the dreamy state, many different types of thoughts, visions and events which are going on in the mind, they continue to disrupt the full stability and the full peacefulness of the mind, which is trying to take rest. But in the fully condensed sleep, or the state of fully condensed sleep, the mind becomes turned off. The buddhi or intelligence also becomes turned off. Only ahankara, and even the chitta or the subtle impressions, they also become turned off. Only ahankara or the false ego remains turned off along with the spirit soul jivatma living entity. That is Sushupti Avastha, or the state of deep sleep. And because the mind is turned off in Sushupti, that is why in Sushupti or in deep sleep, person experiences he doesn't experience any type of dream, whether it be full of variety or whether it be void of variety. He doesn't experience any type of dream, any type of vision, any type of image, photo, picture, incident, or anything. Every type of thought also doesn't come within his being, because the faculty of mind has been turned off. So only false ego, ahankara, remains turned on. And how it is proved that ahankara still remains turned on? Because as soon as a person again comes out from the deep sleep, from the Sushupti, and as soon as his deep sleep ends, when the morning arrives, when the morning comes, when the morning time approaches, when the dawn approaches, at that time when the deep sleep becomes completed, and when the living entity again rises and comes to the awakened state, at that time he recalls and tells his friend, "Oh, today I had very nice sleep." So how did he remember that he had a nice sleep? And he says, today I had no dreams in my sleep. How can he remember if his mind has been turned off, if his intellect has been turned off, and if his impressions have been turned off, man, buddhi and chitta have been turned off? How can he still recall that I had such a sleep which was completely bereft of all dreams and all types of disturbances? Because the faculty of ahankara, the faculty of false ego was still in operation, and that is what makes him recall. So that is ahankara. And Sushupti, ahankara and atma, the living entity, the spirit soul and the false ego are still active. And in the state of samadhi, that's the fourth stage. That is why in Srimad Bhagavatam, a very special word for samadhi has been used. And that is Turiya Avastha. Turiya Avastha means fourth stage. Turiya, the word Turiya means fourth. So, Turiya Avastha or samadhi, the fourth stage, is characterized by saying that in the fourth stage, the living entity is active. The false ego also becomes completely dormant, along with the external outer senses, 10 senses, along with mind, intelligence and certain impressions. Even the false ego becomes dormant, inactive, and goes into non-operation status. Only the living entity solely exists, and only he is active. Otherwise else, all the other parts of the subtle body and gross body become inactive, and that is the stage of samadhi. So this is how. Now the thing is here that Srila Prabhupada describes during a translation that Narad Mahamuni has told Prachin Parhi that all these many different types of incidences. So how can living entity, or how can the mind actually, how can who makes it's not the function of the mind to recall the past incidences. It's the function of the chitta. You see, mind is man. Mind is different from chitta. Chitta is also part of subtle body, mind is also part of subtle body, but mind is different from chitta. So, it is chitta who makes, it is chitta which makes all the past incidences and occurrences and events recall. It is the chitta which recalls all the past incidences and occurrences. It is not the mind which recalls the past incidences and occurrences. Mind, once the chitta has recalled the past occurrences and events, mind mixes them up and then creates different types of fantasies in the dream. That's what the mind does. Mind itself doesn't recall all the past occurrences. That is not its function. That is not its function. That we cannot do. That is what the chitta does, or the subtle impressions. They recall all the past occurrences, because they are the photographic images of all the actions performed. So they can recall all the actions performed. Just like we have a small photographic image, that brown strip. And from that photographic small image, the real actual photograph is developed in a studio lab. So in the same way, the subtle impressions are the most original form of photographic image of all the actions performed, and they have the power to again recall the incidences which had been performed by even millions of years ago. So the chitta is what recalls all the past incidences. The mind is acting just as a mixer of these incidences, and then after mixing these incidences, it creates a very new type of fantasy, and then the living entity is charmed by the fantasy, which is nothing but product of illusion or the product of tamoguna, because dream, laziness, and different types of fantasies are considered to be the products of tamoguna or the mode of ignorance. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also. Pramad, Sattva, Sanjaya, Vijnana, in the 14th chapter. Knowledge is produced from Sattva, and Rajasulo, Evacha, and greed and anger and lust are produced from the mode of passion. Pramad, Moho, Tamasaha, and laziness and illusion are produced from tamoguna along with nescience or ajnana. Pramada moho tamaso bhavato ajnana evacha. So this really state of mind is nothing but a product of the mode of ignorance. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. I apologize that we have taken a lot of time today. If so possible, can give me permission, can I take some questions? Okay. So if anyone has questions, we can talk privately. Okay. Yes, Haribol. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Guru Shri Raghunath Ki Jai Premanande.
So your question is that like a tradition living entity who has not yet become liberated.
No, no, no.
When he
They're really good. You got a spiritual person. Why you have or maybe two cases.
okay.
One when you
Let me
left.
tell you now. Let
What's
me
that?
tell you what happens. An iron rod can turn into fire. Right? When iron rod comes into connection with fire, and when it absorbs fire, it turns into fire, and it acts in the same way as the fire acts. But as long as the fire is connected with the iron rod acts in the same way, in the same capacity as the fire does. But as soon as the fire is again separated from the iron rod regains its original position of not being fire. That means that the original position is never destroyed. Even when it was in connection with fire, it was still iron. That original position was never destroyed. If the original position had been destroyed, then it could not have come back again. So, in the same way, in the same way, even though the internal potency of the Lord, Ahladini Shakti or Bhakti Maharani, even though she unites with the physical senses, mind, intelligence and ego of the living entity, even though she unites with the gross and subtle body of the living entity, when he becomes initiated and becomes, after that. But even at that time, the example, that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very cleverly used the example of iron rod and fire. He doesn't say that the subtle and gross bodies, they turn into fire. He says they are still iron rods absorbing fire. That means that as soon as, because sometimes on the level of Bhava Bhakti also, devotees are seen to be falling down from the level. So as soon as they fall down from the level of Bhava Bhakti by committing very severe aparadha, by committing very severe condensed Vaishnava aparadha, so then they fall down from the stage of Bhava Bhakti, and they do not even come on the stage of sadhana bhakti, they even go down from the stage of sadhana bhakti and become become like any materialist person. So then what happens is the fire, just like when fire is again disconnected from the iron rod again acquires its original status. In the same way, the Ahladini Shakti or the internal potency, if a person performs aparadha, she becomes separated from the subtle and gross body of the living entity, and then the subtle and gross body of the living entity becomes completely material again. They become completely materialized again. So, but that is why it is said that eventually the living entity has to forsake his subtle and gross body. Even though the living entity may be pure devotee of Krishna, even though he may be on the Bhava Bhakti level and Prema Bhakti level, and even though all his material senses may have been spiritualized, not may have been, they are spiritualized for without doubt, but still that is not the permanent solution. The permanent solution is to get fully transcendental spiritualized senses who are those that type of transcendental sense which is ontologically transcendental, which doesn't become transcendental by coming into connection with Ahladini Shakti, but which is transcendental from the very beginning. Yes. Whereas these material senses, even though they may be made into transcendental, but they retain their ontological position of being the products of the external potency. That is why the example of iron rod and iron is given. That is why it is said that the living entity, once he becomes perfect on the path of devotion, and after that he leaves this gross and subtle bodies, his connection with the gross and subtle bodies becomes completely disconnected. Now one can again say that what is the need for a devotee to become disconnected with the subtle and gross body. What's the need? Because the subtle and gross bodies have already become spiritualized. Why they have to become? Why the living entity has? Why the devotee has to be disconnected from the subtle and gross bodies at the time when he goes back to Krishna's dham? The answer is given that even though they may have been spiritualized, but ontologically speaking, even then they are the parts. They are the they are the external potencies products. They are ontologically speaking not internal potency product. That is why they eventually have to be spiritualized. But for the time being, they are spiritualized. For the time being, as long as the living entity has to stay within the subtle and gross body, then they are spiritualized for the time being. Yes. Yes.
My question was
really like your classical because you bring questions I've never thought and you get the answers at the same time.
Okay.
My question is that so when the entity goes back to the spiritual, the subtle, the growth, this kind of, but the living entity is now situated in eternal knowledge. Does that eternal knowledge include knowledge of all the previous incarnations that he had in the material world? Like Krishna told Arjuna, many births I've had, you don't remember them, but I do.
You see, the subtle impressions, the chitta has full knowledge about all the different previous births and lives that we have taken and all the activities that we have done in those lifetimes. But even though the chitta has the whole information about that, it's like a database. It's a database of all the information. But even then, the external potency Maya is controlling the chitta in such a way that the chitta is not able to leak this information out to the mind and to the living entity. That is why the living entity and the mind do not know who they were in their previous lives and what activities they did. So external potency Maya is controlling the chitta. She has put a lock on the storehouse, on the door of the storehouse of subtle impressions. She has put a lock, and that lock only she can unlock. So when she thinks that okay, now let me make the living entity experience an incident of some particular lifetime, then she opens the lock of chitta, and only that part from the chitta, only that part which she wants to make the living entity experience, she takes out, and then the mind is able to attach that part of the chitta and is able to experience that past incident. But not all the past incidents. Maya has put a lock on the chitta division.
Otherwise, we figure out where it's
Otherwise,
Right, you have the lesson that you need to learn now.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, but when you go to the spiritual,
yes.
and since you're in infinite knowledge, does that knowledge when I'm in the spiritual world, but I'd be saying, wow, I remember when I was in the material world.
Yes,
I did that,
yes,
that, that.
yeah.
I remember all my incarnations, but I'll be like, but I don't want to go there. I'm stand here.
Yes.
Okay.
You can remember, but what happens is, sometimes you don't want to remember some things which are full of distress and misery. Especially you will see that some people, especially in many incidents of this world, as in the case of Holocaust and many different incidents, or Vietnam War or many different incidents, the soldiers of Vietnam War, they don't want to share those incidents. They don't even want to think about those incidents. So the same thing with the living entity who enters into Krishna's dham. He doesn't want to think about what he did when he was in the material world, because he is getting every step or every second of his existence, of his presence in the spiritual world, is getting so much condensed, transcendental, paramount pleasure that he doesn't want to waste his time in thinking all sorts of mundane, distressful activities that he had experienced or performed while he was in the material world. So even though he has the ability to recall, but he doesn't recall.
Right.
You know that shloka, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate, from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that shloka, that when you get a higher taste, you don't want to even think about the lower taste.
Yeah.
That's what happens there. So, but the ability to recall is there.
Right. But
But
the
here,
desire to recall is not there.
yeah. But here in the material world, the ability to recall is restricted by mind.
Right.
Otherwise, the living entity will be remembering, everything, whatever he has done, and then he will not be able to focus in his present life. Oh, this lady was my mother. Oh, this lady who is my wife was my mother in my previous life, and then his, everything will become tempered. All his activities in the present time. So that's what Maya does.
Very good.
Okay.
Can I ask a couple questions, please?
Yeah.
On the Pranava symbol, it represents the four states of being, right?
On which symbol?
The Pranava, the Om
The
symbol.
pranava, the Om symbol. Oh yes. The Vedas, the Upanishads, they say that the Om symbolizes these four states of existence. That is Jagrita, Swapna, Sushupti and Samadhi. Yeah. But then Omkar symbolizes many other things. Like Omkar also symbolizes Radha, Krishna, their transcendental love, and their associates, these four. And then Omkar also symbolizes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his associates, etc. So Omkar symbolizes many different transcendental aspects of spirituality. Okay.
A more simple version. Prabhupada says that if you eat too much before you get bad, you'll dream too much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they should, especially the brahmacharis, they should avoid eating late in the night time. Otherwise, they will not be able to stay as brahmacharis. Yes. That's
Okay. Yeah. Is there any reason why?
And also another thing, if you eat more, especially in the late part of the night, latter part of the night, then it will be very difficult for you to get up at 3:30 in the morning for Mangalarti. Because the food has still not been digested, so that's all biological reasons.
Is there some subtle function that has to keep you turned on or digest or something?
Yes. But I think the biologists, they might be knowing more about this because they are knowing the different, different types of systems, bodily systems, to detail this. But the general law, according to Ayurveda, is that if you eat late at night, then you will not be able to get up early in the morning. And even if you get up, then you will not feel that much, energetic and that much, full of energy. You will feel lazy, sleepy. And also, if you eat late at night, then there is another thing that, this reproductive organ becomes little more powerful. And it starts, showing its influence on especially those who are celibate. So that is why it is instructed to eat late at night. Even if it may be Krishna Prasadam, still, even if it is Krishna Prasadam, Krishna Prasadam after all is a food. So it also has to, act in the capacity of food. You cannot say that. So,
Like our body's not transcendental, so we're going to get the food back. Well, our soul might go to the shadow.
Yeah. So as long as you are not completely spiritualized, then the effect will still be there.
Are you going to take the shot now?
Yeah. Hey.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.